phones onto aeroplane mode or off completely. Other than that, smile, have fun, grab a seat.
Great, thank you.
Go, come on the camera. Pick one, we'll follow you. You like the look of that, please. That's good.
Yeah, I can hear you.
What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sound ready? Cool. Right. Jump up, Johnny.
Sorry?
Yeah, we're ready when you are. Bethan, just when Johnny will introduce it, and then. Can someone pass the note on about phones, please?
Hello, my name is Johnny Dolan and this is the Vice Presidential Hustings. Thank you for watching Guild TV. We're going to start off with the VPDRS. So would you like to come to the front and we'll crack on?
Cool. Right.
Okay, so would you like to do a 6 seconds of your introduction to yourself and your policies perhaps, and then we'll go for questions from the floor.
Cool. All right, hi, I'm Bethan Lovey-Dovey. I'm running for Vice President of Democracy, Resources and Sustainability. Just to really quickly shoot through my policies. First one, I want to support student business. I want to see the Guild actively engaging with student and alumni businesses by offering a student business fair and business workshops. I also want to make getting fab tickets easier, because at the moment it's harder than getting a first in your degree. 2 things I want to do to do that: impose a ticket limit of 4 to curb resellers, and also stagger the online release of tickets to weekly rather than termly to give you more flexibility for your nights out. My third policy, which is my big one and it's my favourite, is to scrap Guild Council. I think it doesn't work. A lot of other students think it doesn't work. Many people don't even know what it is. I want to replace it with something that actually actively engages students, that's designed by them, and consult them on how it works next year. I've got a lot of experience in the Guild. I've been everything from an RA, student committees member, chair of Guild Council, and I just turn up at Fab occasionally. So yeah, that's why you should vote for me for VPDRS.
Brilliant. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
How do you envisage scrapping Guild Council?
Okay, I've been asked this quite a lot. So the wheels are already in motion for this to happen. So something called the Democratic Structures Review has been going on this year. Students have been consulted. They've had focus groups and workshops to ask them about how they feel about Guild democracy and the officer team. So the Democratic Structures Review is going through Guild Council. If it gets voted through Guild Council this year, it will then go on to student referendum for cross-campus referendum, and everyone votes on it then. If that passes, which I hope it does, then next year we'll have a completely different democratic structure in place. The reason I put that policy in was not just because, you know, it's a brand new idea that I've come up with myself, but I just wanted to point out to students that they need somebody who's competent at the helm of implementing this new structure, and that's me, because I know what I'm doing. As I've said, I've got a lot of experience with student democracy, and also I'm really strongly committed to making sure students are involved at every step of the process, from implementation to actually experiencing it and consulting them and making sure it sort of stays student focused as it goes on and doesn't turn into what the last system was.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes.
So what do you think about scrapping the non-SABs, and how would you either make that happen or something happen?
Okay, so while I do want the Democratic Structures Review to go ahead, I do think it needs tweaking. One of the things in the review, for people who don't know, is the removal of the non-sabbatical officers, and that specifically includes the liberation officers. I don't like that, and I don't think that's good. Having spoken to a lot of people from the liberation groups in question, they feel that it takes away a lot of their power, and just because the non-sabbatical officers at the moment are perhaps not working and not being given enough support is not enough reason to remove them. So I personally don't think that that should be something that's removed, but obviously that's going to go through Guild Council. If that does happen and say they do get removed, I want to make sure that liberation autonomy is top priority. I also think that it's not just a case of the structures being in place, but also wider campus attitudes to things like liberation. So zero tolerance policy, for example. So I'd want to see like wider campaigns on making students aware of that and aware of liberation issues, really, because there's a lot of privileged people on campus who maybe aren't aware of some of the things that oppressed groups have to deal with all the time. There you go.
Yes, go ahead.
We talk about sort of more student engagement in the democratic structure review. How do you sort of envisage that? How do you?
So I want to see the Guild communicating more effectively, because I think that's the main thing. A lot of people have spoken to me personally, just random anecdotal things, saying, oh, they'd come to Guild Council if they knew when it was and where it was. I also want to better advertise when and where these things are happening. I'd like to do things like, giving out info packs for freshers, having a lot more stuff available in Welcome Week to sort of grab freshers while they're there, sort of kind of like a preventative thing to stop them becoming apathetic. Hopefully, if the system works better and is easier to deal with, it will be naturally more engaging. Because I know a lot of people have wanted to get involved in Guild Council, have turned up and then just been turned off. So I want to make sure they come and they're turned on, I guess.
Okay. Any other questions at all? I have a question, if that's okay.
Fire away.
Drinks prices in Joe's, do you think they're the right price, or should they be more expensive or cheaper?
Well, obviously, I'd love to see them cheaper. However, I personally am not sure whether that is possible. Now, I do believe that Joe's isn't technically under our control. I'm not sure about that. That's something that I want to look into next year. I would like to see them cheaper, though, but I'm not sure how to go about doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If that's it. Thank you, Bethan. Right, so we're now moving on. Yes. We're now moving on to the Vice President of Education. So could those candidates come to the front? You can sit down if you want, or like Bethan, you can stand in the front if you're eager. Perhaps let's sit down if we're going to spend a while. Or stand up. Why not stand up? Why not stand up? Why not stand up? It's fine. Let's all stand up.
Stand in the middle.
In the middle, like over here.
Brilliant. So you're each going to get 60 seconds again, as Bethan did, to explain who you are and what you're here for, and then we'll go on to questions from the floor again. So, Dan, would you like to start?
Not hugely, but if you insist. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm half blind. I blame that.
Just hold it up and that's it. Just talk into it.
Do we get lots of tutorials on how microphones work? Because I like this.
Having watched Guild Council.
Okay, well let's get on to the introduction section. So you have 60 seconds.
Okay. When am I? I've already started. Good. Hi, I'm Dan with the Plan Bellamy. I have 3 main policies. Common rooms for all schools, or because, well, a lot of them don't have them at the moment. They have common-ish areas, but we could do more to expand and put more of a focus on them. I'd like to increase lecturer training, especially by using the structures we already have in place, like the module feedback form, where we say we like this lecturer, and also we say we don't like this lecturer. We could have the ones that we like talk to other lecturers and maybe tell them how to do it better. I also want to increase access to online resources. For example, in biosciences, we quite often use Panopto, but it is not taken up 100% by all lecturers. So basically encouraging uptake of Panopto and throughout the entire university. So if you happen to miss a lecture because you were ill, you can just watch it and listen to it.
Thanks. Joe, would you like to?
Good afternoon, my name is Average Joe Armour and I'm going to be your next Vice President of Education. If you were to elect me, I've got several main policies I want to implement. I also want to implement a wider use of Panopto lecture recordings across campus, not only so if you miss a lecture, but also so that you can catch up on it and help yourself revise. We already did this at Bristol, they already do it in a lot of departments at this university, so we can see a sort of more campus-wide approach. I also want to see a higher quality of essay feedback. I've heard stories when I've been out talking to students of 2-word feedback. I want this to stop. good approach is not helpful, it doesn't get you anywhere, and it certainly doesn't help you sort of build up your essay technique. I also want to see exam feedback. When so much of our grade is based on exams, I want to make sure that we're getting our exam feedback so we can actually improve. And lastly, I want to make sure that we end deadline loading. When you have 6 3,000-word essays in on the same day, that's not fair, it's not good, and it doesn't produce your best work, and it also stresses you out. So I want to make sure that we don't have crammed exam timetables and we don't have deadlines all at the same time. I'd also like to make sure that you vote Average Joe #1 for Vice President Education.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. Deborah?
Hello, I'm Deborah Hermans and I want to be your next Vice President of Education. I actually very much agree with Joe that assessment is incredibly important and that there's a lot of problems with it. However, I think it's incredibly important that we look at the initial problem. Why is there problems with assessment? Why do we get 2-word assessment? It is because the university doesn't hire enough lecturers for us to teach. For example, last year, 1/3 of physiotherapy staff were cut, but they still took the same amount of students. This year, computer science doubled in numbers in the first year, but did they take much more lecturers on board? No, they didn't. So lecturers have way too stressed and have way too much to do. So I think it is the duty of guild officers, and that is what I would see as my main priority, to lobby the university to actually put the money into our education, to put the money into hiring enough staff, hiring enough lecturers, and making sure that we get the education that we're here for. Guild officers sit in a lot of committee meetings with senior management, even with the Vice Chancellor. They get a lot of information, but they're not transparent enough. They don't talk enough about it with students, and so students don't actually know what's happening to them. They don't know how the university is treating them.
Wrap up, Deborah?
Oh, sorry.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. Right, so do we have any questions from the floor? Yes?
A lot of you talk about lecturing and assessment, but a lot of that doesn't apply to research students, to postgrads. Do you have any policies that would apply to research postgrads?
Okay, so each of the candidates will get 90 seconds to answer. So if we start with Deborah and work back along the line, so your 90 seconds begins.
Okay, so first of all, talk about postgraduate students and PhD students who teach. So I think what's really wrong at the moment is that they're hired through WorkLink. The way that works is basically if you want to work in the bar or work in catering, you are hired through WorkLink, and the same applies to a lot of PhD students. And I think that needs to change. And at the moment, UCU and the Guild are actually working on that. And I want to continue working on that. I want postgraduate students to be employed by their departments. That is one thing. Other areas that that's
Okay, so where I don't actually specifically have postgraduate policies, I don't think that's my place. I'm a second-year undergrad student. What I would do is I'd spend a lot more time actually going out and listening to what the postgraduate students have to say. I'm not going to start making up policies to listen to postgrad students and see what I think affects them, because that's simply not good enough. We need to engage more with postgraduates as a union as a whole, but I think that's something I want to listen to, and I actually want to echo a lot of what Deborah says, because she's had those conversations, and I want to make sure that those conversations continue and we work better for postgraduates.
I'd like to echo Joe, actually. I think that's going to be a theme throughout this debate, these questions, but we can repeat the 2010 election. I agree with Nick. For postgrads, I don't really know much about them. If I am elected, I would like to learn more about them. I'd contact the postgraduate officer, talk to them, help, basically just follow what they're telling me to do, because they obviously have far more experience with postgrads than I do at the moment, and am ever likely to.
Okay, brilliant. Does anyone have any other questions for the VPE candidates? Yes.
Deborah, perhaps, because
if we phrase the questions to all of the candidates so that we can all get a chance.
It is for everyone, but
brilliant.
She mentioned it, but
okay.
No problem. Why do you think that these cuts on the staff are happening these years?
Okay, so if we start with Joe, would you like to start this one?
Okay, so why are the cuts happening? So I don't actually know, and it's something that we should be asking as a guild. The university actually obtains more money. We've had record number of students taken on this year to the point where we actually couldn't put them in accommodation, and that's a completely different issue. I'm not the Vice President of Housing Community, but that's something that we should be looking at, is actually asking these questions, scrutinising how the university spends its money, why we're cutting departments, the reasons for it, the demand, and all those kind of things. And we should be really looking at that. I can't give you much more of an answer than that, I'm afraid.
Okay, Deborah, would you like to answer?
Okay, so Joe already said this university has a lot of money. It's actually one of the richest universities in the country. We've had 4% more like students applying, and yeah, we have money. But why are these cuts happening? The cuts are happening because the money is going into the wrong places. Like, I'm sure you're all aware of like the high amount of money that our vice chancellor gets. He's like £400,000 salary, basic salary. He has like an £80,000 car, as a chauffeur, a mansion, etc. There's over 100 managers in this university who earn over £100,000. The university wastes vast amount of money in marketing. If you go in the underground in London, you can see posters for the University of Birmingham. The university is currently building a campus in India to attract international students because they bring a lot of money. And it could keep going. Or for example, Bramwell Music Hall that costs millions of pounds. Yes, it's a very nice music hall, but does it have much lecture theatres in it? Does it have space for postgrads, for example, to work in? No, it doesn't. And so that's where the money is going, and that is the very short answer I can give you why they're cutting courses. But if I'm honest, I have absolutely no idea why they're cutting our education and why they're cutting our lectures, because they shouldn't do. And I think one of the reasons why they can do it is because they can get away with it, because the Guild isn't talking about it enough, and because students aren't aware of it, and because students aren't campaigning enough against those cuts.
Brilliant, thanks Deborah. Dan?
I think mostly they're doing the cuts so they can make more money. There are probably various ideological reasons behind it, but people seem to like money at the moment, which is fair enough, I guess. I can't say more on it than that.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the floor? Yes.
Okay. So the VP role for me has quite a big kind of focus on campaigning. I want to know what the candidates think a campaigning guild should be like, what kind of campaigns they run. Are they working with the university, or are they going to be mobilising students in more direct action?
Go ahead. Shall we start with Dan?
I hadn't considered that aspect of the role much, but I would like, from my position of very little information at the moment, I would like to mostly get some more information. If it looks like the best way of getting things done is working with the university, then that's what I'll do. If it looks like the best way of getting it done is mobilising the student body as a whole, then that's what I'll do. But part of the question was direction of campaigns, was it?
Well, no, that was it. You just answered the question.
Oh, right, okay then.
Brilliant.
Go me.
Joe?
When I've been out and talking to different students out, one student said it'd be really nice to have a Vice President Education who actually listens and doesn't just shout. I really want to make sure that actually we're going out and we're talking and making sure that actually where the university and the Guild can work together, we are. We've got a positive relationship there. And actually when we don't, we act as the critical friend. We say they're wrong and we mobilise in direct action. I think that's completely right. I think there's a place for both things in our campaigning structures. There shouldn't just be one, and there never just should be. There shouldn't be either or. There should be both, and it needs to be applied at the right time. But the thing that really needs to happen, I think, when we come to campaigning is we need to get students involved. When students really get involved, when they get mobilised, that's when it is. We can't see the same old cliques day after day going out and doing the same campaigns. It needs to be widespread, get involving students, and really getting students involved in our campaigns.
Brilliant, thanks. Deborah?
I actually really agree with what Joe just said. And I think basically what's very, very, very important for that to happen, for not just cliques to do campaigns outside the Guild, is for that's why it's important that the Guild initiates campaigns. So first of all, obviously Guild, as I said before, Guild officers have the chance to sit in meetings with senior management where they find out information and where they're able to lobby, such senior management. I think that is the first step. And so you find out, you try to change it. If you can't, then you start talking about it. Then you start campaigning. So you can do that by doing petitions. You can do that by organising demonstrations. You can do that in a lot of different. You can do that by door knocking. You can do that by leafleting. You can do that in a lot of different ways. One thing that I think is incredibly important is that we organise much more in departments. So we have got guild council, like departmental guild councillors. We have got student reps, and we have got like academic staff in departments who like have representative like roles. And I think all of those need to work much more together. There should be, for example, monthly meetings where you sit in where all of those people sit in the department together, facilitated by the guild, facilitated by the vice president of education, and actually talk about this and this happened. Like this person got made redundant. Should we do something about this? Like I've got way too much like students in my lecture, etc. And so the guild, I think, should be initiating campaigns, but should also accompany campaigns done by departments for education of students.
Brilliant, thanks. Right, next question. Yes.
So the university last year employed an unconditional offer strategy, and it has done it again this year for recruitment. But in the sector, we've also seen a lot more universities employing that kind of the unconditional offer strategy to students who are predicted very high grades. I just wondered what your opinions were on universities using that as a way of recruiting students.
Right, Deborah, do you want to start and work back along the line again?
So like basically like I think there's like one problem with that kind of strategy, and that is that like the university, like it did this year, might end up taking more first year students than they're actually able to take. So like I don't know if you've all I'm sure everyone in this room heard about like the 200 to 300 students who were promised halls, and then were got here in September, and then they didn't have halls and had to like find houses in like Selly Oak and in the city centre. And I think that shows like one of the problems of that strategy, because it's much more difficult for the university to like count how many students they will have at the end.
Brilliant, thanks.
So one thing that I think about the unconditional offer strategy, which has a real positive, is exams are a really arbitrary way of measuring your success. Your performance on one day shouldn't be measuring where you go and which university you go and where you should go in the future. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's done well, particularly now that the government has reformed A-level exams so that you only do them once a year and you've got far less chance of resitting them. So actually, these A-level exams become way more important in terms of that. So actually, I have an issue I think that sometimes assessment is too arbitrary. So I actually agree with that thing. Although it has to be done with care. Like you can't just recruit massively and do that. And in some senses, like we should be looking at it, we should be scrutinising it and actually seeing what the effect is after this year and see what's happening then.
Brilliant, thanks.
I agree with the problems with exams being the only measure of success. Personally, I have problems with extended pieces of writing, which is not great in essay-based exams, which, affects my exam results. Being told by my tutor I should be achieving much higher than I am, which links into this. Yeah, unconditional offers are great, but we do really need to check the university should be checking the intake themselves, but if they appear to be doing it recklessly, which seems we got an extra 300 students, more than we had halls places, then we should be you should really have a look at this. You're probably doing it a bit too much.
Okay, brilliant. Are there any other questions? Yes.
The guild is a parasite, and it survives off the university, which is its host. And I don't mean parasite in a particularly negative way. It's just the way it is. It cannot exist without the university. It has no internal existence outside of itself, outside of the university. As such, how will you avoid being sidelined by the university? Because it's very easy for the university to ignore us, and they will only listen when they think that they have something to gain from listening, which I think precludes direct action. But how would you avoid being sidelined by the university and losing all relevance entirely?
Brilliant, thanks. So if we start with Joe, and then go Dan, and then Deborah.
Okay, so this is a very interesting question. I don't necessarily think that the guild would necessarily be sidelined by the university. The university, in many ways, actually works really productively with the guild. Actually, we act as partners. We see that actually this year when the RAs, and the accommodation management group, they actually came together, they went out and sort of talked about like costs and stuff. Actually, we were able to reduce accommodation fees like across the board. We actually made to take more down under £100. So actually, the university and the guild has potential to actually be partners, and that's actually something where we should be looking at, not just being the sort of parasitic friend, but actually looking at partners in our education, partners as part of the university, because actually once you take away the flashy buildings, once you take away the Vice-Chancellor, there are two things left at this university. There are the staff and there's the students. So I think that's really important that we actually work carefully to make sure that we are partners in this. It's not just the university and their little guild that tries and sort of bites at their kneecaps occasionally.
Brilliant. Yes, to Dan first.
She can go if she wants
No,
to.
it's
Okay.
only fair.
I think we are in more of a symbiotic relationship with the university. We provide them benefits, which Joe said, and I'm sure Deborah will as well. And they provide us with they provide us with benefits, mostly the money to do things, and the students that make up the guild. So, sorry, I've forgotten the question.
So, would you like?
I was just focused on the
Question is
parasite thing.
How you avoid being
sidelined by the university.
Right. Well, I think seeing as all of the students are members of the majority of students are members of the guild, if we educate and engage students, then we could stop them from, giving the university good reviews when they do naughty things. So then the university suffers. So we have the threat of direct action, which we don't necessarily have to take. And I really feel like I'm doing better on this question. I apologise profusely. We can make threats of direct action, which they hopefully will take seriously, and if they don't, I have no idea what we can do, really, but it's something that I would like to investigate.
Okay, brilliant, thanks.
So, I think there is a massive problem in the relationship between the university and the guild, in the power relationship between the university and the guild. I think the university at the moment is here, and the guild is somewhere down there. And I think the reason for that is that we are too quiet, and we are the guild is letting itself being sidelined by the university. And I think that shouldn't be happening. So, as it was said before, this university consists of staff and it consists of students, and they should be the ones making the decisions and the ones who are in control. And so I think that can happen. The guild provides a lot of services to the university which are essential. If there wasn't the societies, if there wasn't the ARC, if there wasn't SHAC and all of that, and FAB even, students wouldn't probably not be coming to this university, because they don't only come for a degree, they also come for the experience. And the university very much exploits that on their open days and when they send out information about the university. So I think we need to make use of that knowledge. We need to make use of the fact that university needs us, that university is dependent on the guild, and we need to be more loud about that and use that when we know something is going wrong. And so that's what I was referring to earlier when I meant guild officers need to be more transparent about the information that they get and about what they're doing, because then the university can't get away with sidelining the guild basically.
Brilliant. Well, we've been told by our producers that's all the time we have for Vice President of Education Hustings. So thanks to all the candidates. And we now move on to VPHC. So would the candidate like to come to the front? Yeah, sure. So you have 6 seconds to introduce yourself, and then we'll open it up to the floor for questions. So 6 seconds.
Hi, I'm Captain Jack Mabley, running for Vice President of Housing and Community. I'm running on 3 main policies. First one is sailing you to a safer Selly. Obviously, there's a lot of crime in Selly at the moment, in particular a lot of recent events. But I feel that Selly Watching at the moment isn't effective enough in reaching a large majority of students. So what I wanted to do is pull it online, allow the vast majority of the 30,000 students who live in housing or halls, etc., to access it. Second of all, I want to create an online system where you can view your landlords before you sign up for a house. What it will be made up is previous tenants' reviews of the landlords, maintenance issues, deposits, etc. And finally, more wheelie bins in Selly Oak, and lobbying the local council to increase the amount of wheelie bins on Selly Oak and Harborne. Currently only Hubert Road, Dawlish and Tiverton have them. I've worked at SHAC, part of an RA. There's a lot more I want to do as well.
Wraps up.
Those are my 3 main policies.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. So do we have any questions from the floor? Yes.
Hi, what is your favourite flavour of crisp?
Prawn cocktail.
Brilliant. Didn't even need to do the timer. So yes.
In my time as an RA, I experienced some pretty awful things in terms of liberation politics. I felt there was a lot of lad culture when I was an RA. That has improved since, and I know that engagement with people from liberation groups has improved with the most recent batch of RAs. I want to know how you would try and engage, particularly through the RA scheme, something that's a really powerful thing, liberation students, particularly like freshers. How would you do that?
Okay, so we have 90 seconds for all these questions.
Yeah, cool. I remember this time, I don't know if it was the time last year, but there was the motion for liberation RAs. I didn't personally think that's the right way to go about it, but I do think there needs to be more interaction with the liberation groups and also the RAs. Whether it's a case of bringing in the relevant officers to meet the RAs when they're coming for training, having them maybe come into every other res exec to have to do a catch-up, and just maybe integrating the rules together a little bit more than it currently is. And I think that could be then transported over to the halls and, yeah, through different events that are all-inclusive, or maybe just specific to each liberation role to make everyone feel like they've got events for them rather than just for the general student population.
Brilliant. Are there any? Yes.
Okay, so quite a few student unions at the minute are pursuing a cops off campus strategy, and it's something that's been debated in this chamber actually. I just wondered what your view on this was when your role works very closely with the local police, and we've seen actually in the last week how the police have played a really integral role in helping students who have suffered quite horrific incidents. I just wondered how you sort of wanted to balance that out.
Okay. I disagree with the cops of campus policy. First of all, I feel that the Guild needs to be working with the police in particular. There's the events of the Tiverton Road events where you've seen that the police are needed to be there and they can work well with welfare services, they can work well with the ARC, and it's sort of having this symbiotic relationship. I think it's necessary to make sure the Guild is a functioning establishment that is relevant for all students. Without the police, I don't think we'd have any sort of real backing behind our welfare services or anything like that. And also, I think if cops were off campus, it would mean there'd be no fab. So, and I know that's important to a lot of students.
Okay, are there? Yes.
So, as Bob mentioned in the last week, there's been a spur of violent crime against university students. If you're elected, what strategies will you employ to prevent this in the future?
Yeah, okay, first of all, obviously there's the Study Watch scheme, which I want to develop and make more accessible to make more students aware of what's going on around them, make them more prepared, just more common sense activities. But then there's also the possibility of speaking to the local council and asking for, say, the dark alleyways, where are the lights in those dark alleyways? Maybe more, I know during the first term I've seen the police tents and stuff giving out rape alarms and burglar alarms and stuff. So increase that. I know the police are very good from the first term, police presence. Maybe continuing that if that's possible, speaking to the local police and saying, Selly Oak is a problem area, what are you doing to do it, to improve it? Just because we're students, it doesn't mean we're any less important. So I think that's a key thing to say to the police.
Okay, yes?
I'm sure you know about all the construction work and stuff that's gone on the rail and everything. That's really affected a lot of students, and gas and water's gone, and they haven't had much notification from town management and stuff. And basically, how would you going forward, make sure that the university really thinks about the students that are going to be living there and what their experience and their studies are going to be like, and how they're going to be affected if it tries to pack more students in and create new construction plans and stuff.
Yeah, so obviously you talk about the Aitken development, and also there's also the Jarrett as well. I think it's important, especially with the Aitken, they weren't made aware from what I've made of the plans. And I think it is, in fact, if the work is going ahead and the halls are still there, make sure you're telling the students about it first. Second of all, working with their management, saying, okay, the construction's gone, it needs to happen, because obviously we don't want more freshers off campus. I mean, the halls are a great way to meet people, and having freshers off campus isn't ideal. So yeah, I think the construction obviously does need to happen, but we need to be directing that knowledge to students at first. Also, if the construction is happening, you need to make it happen in social hours, obviously between say 10 and 4. Yeah, best answer I can give.
Brilliant. George?
What do you think the role of third-party accommodation is, such as Liberty Gardens and Liberty Court? Do you think the university should be providing all the accommodation, or do you think they have a significant role to play?
I'll just briefly say, I think we're having some sound issues. I think you've accidentally tapped the bottom, perhaps. I don't know, but no, just don't tap it. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant.
Okay, so third-party accommodation. Yeah, obviously, without this third-party accommodation, we couldn't house a huge number of freshers. It's largely important, and I think it's great that we have RAs for those halls, and I think it's great that they're included. Obviously, by building more halls, university-based halls, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do rely on these third-party halls, and I think we should still keep them. I mean, it gives students the option who are, say, dental hygiene students in the city centre. A third-party hall in the city centre is obviously more convenient than the Vale. Students who obviously are on satellite sites, they also need halls that aren't necessarily the university halls. So I think it's really important to keep on working with these halls. So we have a lot of options available to students who maybe want to be closer to the city centre, or those who want to be closer to Edgbaston Cricket Ground just for cricket. So, yeah, they're important.
Okay, brilliant. Dave?
So in your speech and in your manifesto, you mentioned a lot about Selly Oak and students in halls. Just wondering if you had any plans to support students who are either home students or live further afield, such as Moseley or Harborne.
What I particularly want to do, which I haven't actually mentioned before, is the Fox Sock. I want to bring that back. I know what it used to be, it got basically let down, and the best decision for that was to let it go, which I think is ridiculous. There are obviously a lot of students who are off campus this time, and also a lot of home students as freshers who don't have the same support as they would in halls. As halls, you have a big RA scheme, you have massive hall pride, and I want to bring back that for Foxsock. I want to have RAs for Foxsock. I want to bring back events for Foxsock. I know start of the first year there was a few events and there was hoodies and stuff, but after that there wasn't really much, and I want to make sure throughout the year there are events for these kind of people who aren't necessarily in halls, but I want to make sure they're also having a great time like everyone else is.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Yes.
It's not to criticize at all. But I was wondering why this outfit is needed to be voted. Why this outfit is needed to be elected. Like, I'm not judging, you can do
It was just like a kind of thing to get me remembered. So obviously what I've chosen to do with the Captain Jack is quite a common theme in Pirates of the Caribbean. So what it was is draw attention to myself, and then also it would lead to investigation then into the policies that I have, and hopefully it would engage a lot more students, because obviously a gimmick is great, and I think it engages a lot more students because it attracts a lot more attention, and once it attracts that attention, which is great, I want students to be investigating my policies, criticising my policies. I want them to be asking me questions about my policies. So the idea behind the costume was to get larger student engagement, I guess.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Yes.
With increasing numbers of BCU students moving into Selly Oak, what kind of plans would you have to work maybe with other unions across the city to support all students who are living in housing?
So I mean like Birmingham Unis Unite events kind of thing. Okay. Okay. Yeah, obviously there is an increasing number of BCU students in Selly Oak, and obviously the more from working to live there, it's great. I'm not quite sure. Obviously I think it's a great idea to work with other unions, whether we're within Birmingham, outside Birmingham, the local Midlands area. I think that should always be encouraged, because it means more students interacting with each other, making more connections, uniting together. I mean, if there then was an issue in Birmingham which all unions had to unite against, I think it's great that we'd had this this sort of interaction with the unions, and by bringing the sort of students together. Whether that is by doing inter-university events, whether that's by doing big blood drives, for example, between all the universities from students. Yeah, I think working with other universities is probably a good thing.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, let's give Jack a hand. Thanks a lot. And our final hustings for the vice presidents are Vice President of Welfare. So if those candidates would like to come to the front. And just grab the microphone. It's there. Brilliant. Okay, so if we have 6-second introduction from you. So Frankie, we'll start. We'll just go along the line.
So I'm Frankie Says Relax Greenwell. I'm running to be the Vice President of Welfare. My three big policies that I have for you guys are, the first thing I want to do is reintroduce something called SHAG Week, which stands for Sexual Health Awareness and Guidance Week. It got trialled a couple of years ago and it wasn't very good. The events were really low key and really small scale. Just want to do big events that like everyone wants to go to and just engage students and start talking about sex like adults, not like children. Second thing I want to do is create an online resource, an online welfare resource that's constantly being updated by students, that's got all the useful information that you need if you move from your halls to Selly Oak, that's got all the useful information that you need for when you come to university, all like welfare info that students need on a day-to-day basis. And the last thing that I want to do, that I really, really want to see, is for some daytime freshers events to happen, things like an open-air cinema or like some more live music, where you can just meet people. You don't have to worry about being going out at night. If you don't drink, it's a nice way to meet people. You don't get marginalised, like is what happens a lot at the moment.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Julie Jaffacake. I'm running to be your next Vice President of Welfare. I've got 3 main points. I want a welfare week, a welfare app, just to have some workshops where if you have any issues at uni or if you've got any issues with your cause or housemates, I want the workshops to be there, the support to be available. I also want to work on extenuating circumstances. At the moment, they're not fair, they're not consistent across campus. Each department, each school has different rules about them, so I want to make them consistent and fair for all students. I also want to have more inclusive events. A lot of international postgraduate mature students are hard to reach. They don't get involved with the Guild, they're too scared. The Guild isn't just about fab, it's about, there's a lot of societies doing a lot of events that I want to get people engaged, basically. Yeah, that's me. Please vote for me. There you go.
Hi, I'm Helena. Over the past few days, and let's face it, weeks, I've been thinking why exactly I'm subjecting myself to this inaccessible popularity contest riddled with bureaucracy. I don't care about the Guild as it stands. I don't care about the Student Experience Factory. I don't care about Fab and Fresh or Sports Night. I don't care about 10p cheaper beer and Joe's. I don't care. The reason that I want to be VP Welfare is because I have a plan, actual concrete steps on how to improve what is a dire situation. I'm going to spend time categorically creating a list of resources for students so that they can be supported throughout their time at university. I'm going to create partnerships with third-party organisations like Birmingham and Solihull's Women's Aid and the LGBT Centre in town. I'm going to support the overworked non-SAB liberation officers who fully deserve and need to be paid full-time despite efforts to get rid of them and downplay their struggles. It absolutely disgusts me the level of lip service and emptiness that is given to liberation groups in this university. Though our struggles intersect, you cannot hope to contain them with short-sighted single-struggle aims. We are vast, varied, and we deserve the rights that we've been so wrongfully denied. I am going to fight tooth and nail to stop these cuts to get our already dilapidated welfare services. I'm going to fight for the living wage. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Hello.
Go.
Themis or Themistocles Pagoudis in English. I'm campaigning, I will campaign for health, let's say first. The immigration bill is threatening the internationals to be paying for the NHS next year, which is an unfair, I think, measure. As for safety, Selly Oak and Vale, the darkness towards on the way to Vale, the burglars on Selly Oak. Equality, apart from LGBTQ, which is a respectable affair, and I have done, I think, much about it. I care about seemingly innocent racisms. I have in mind against Chinese, perhaps. We can discuss it. I am the only postgraduate, as far as I am aware, running. Postgraduates and mature students are underrepresented and will be more with the new democratic structures. Then last, welfare for people who work in the Guild, for the Guild of Students, who are with 0 hours contract sometimes, with the minimum wage.
Brilliant.
But read, think and vote, this is my...
Brilliant, thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we don't have all welfare candidates here, so we're not able to ask them questions. However, as that feels like perhaps a little too little for you to speak, would you perhaps like 90 seconds just to go through one of your policies that you'd like to speak about, or spend the time however else if you want to do another speech? Do you think that would be... Are all candidates happy with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so would you like to start? You can just use the 90 seconds however you like.
Oh, fine. Thank you for this time. This company, the university,
has much power against us, I think. I'm only for 1 year here, and I feel that information is hidden. People are suspended because they disagree with the university, the company, the uni, whatever you want to call it. This is something that I care about. I would like us to be less arrogant, read the manifestos, discuss with the people, rather than voting for the most popular, the most brainwashing ones. I'm not saying that I am the most effective, but I'm saying that people should, in democracy, if we wanted to work well, people should try to find which is the most effective. Again, I'm not saying I'm the most effective. I'm here for 1 year. I've passed from 2 other universities, by the way, but find me and discuss with me. That's all I think. Much can be done, not so much perhaps, by the Guild of Students. I don't know. This is not only here, this is not only in Great Britain, this is in all the Western capitalist world, I think, which is against education and which is anti-intellectual. That's all from me.
Brilliant, thanks a lot.
So that was quite angry. I am quite angry about the state of the Guild, actually. I think that the officer elections as it stands right now is very telling, actually, because there's more candidates for welfare and education, which are basically the only positions that I think can actually do anything. One thing that I would quite like to do, which has been a talking point in my campaign, is to have a clear way to report sexual assault and rape on campus. As it stands, there's absolutely nothing in place for people who have gone through this, and I think that's appalling. And what I would actually do to try and enact that policy would be to create a link with local rape crisis centres and work with Women's Aid, create a survivor group, which I know is already in place to be happening, and I would also create a list of outside resources which people can be referred to. I would talk to the counsellors who specialise in this and make sure that they are well versed on what the university can and cannot do in this case. I would like for there to be legal advice on this as well if people decide to take that route, and a support all the way through that arduous legal process. And I think that's really important. And I have very clear ways that I know I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Cool. I want to talk about my extenuating circumstances manifesto point, because talking to a lot of students, and especially in the last 2 weeks, I've heard so many stories about stress, so much pressure that's been put on students. Talking to one of my really good friends that I didn't know, she got asked for a death certificate on the spot, which was awful. I think the university is not consistent, especially each school has different procedures. They're not sticking to the university guidelines, they're breaking them. Being an ARC volunteer, I've heard so many stories of students just not being listened to, just not being cared for by their schools. I think it's really important that we engage with the Guild, engages with the university the same way they've been doing with the Fit to Sit procedure. There needs to be a change, there needs to be some sort of way that we can make sure that each school definitely sticks to what they're meant to, what the university tells them to do, because some schools are definitely breaking those rules. And in terms of my welfare app and my welfare week, I know a lot of people who have, again, from being a volunteer at the ARC and just talking to students, they're stressed, especially in 2nd and 3rd year. Stress, anxiety, they have dyslexia problems, health problems, and they just don't know who to talk to, where to go to. So if I do get elected, I would like to make sure that the welfare week, 1 week during first term and another week during second term, where we have those workshops, the same way the wellbeing week is run at the university. But yeah, that's me. There you go.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. Thank you.
So the thing I'd like to talk about is some more inclusive events during Freshers. This word gets bandied about a lot, especially during Kill Council, things being more inclusive. And to be fair, there are events that run during Freshers that don't involve alcohol, and they're great events. They're put on by the RAs and by the mentors. They're really good events. Unfortunately, they're not that well attended. And I think, my belief, my strongly held belief even, is that the reason these events aren't well attended is because they're advertised as what's termed non-alcoholic events. And to the layperson, non-alcoholic event, if you go, oh, we're having a non-alcoholic event, why don't you come down? Someone will go, well, does that mean that no one who drinks is allowed to go? Does that mean that no one, like, I'm only allowed to go if I've never had any drinks in my life? Does that mean that I can't go out for a drink afterwards? We're trying to be inclusive by saying non-alcoholic events, and we're just excluding people. The events that I want to see happen are things that anyone can go to. They are open to absolutely everybody. Something like an open-air cinema on a sunny day, out on the Vale or in the Guild, up against the wall, outside Joe's, just out through the window there. Anyone can go to it. You can relax. You can chat to people. It's a really good way to get to meet anyone and everyone who's at university. Doesn't matter whether or not you go out, whether or not you don't drink, whether or not you have never had a drink in your life. The events are something that everybody can go to and that everybody can enjoy. I don't like the idea that people are being segregated by whether or not they drink, and that's a big thing for me.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. So that is the end of our Vice Presidential Hustings. So give the Vice Presidents of Welfare a big clap and all the other candidates. I believe we are now having around a half an hour break until the Presidential Hustings, which I will also be hosting. So come back.
Guys, unfortunately, we can't start the Presidential Hustings until 7 because that's when we're scheduled to go live. That's when everyone knows we're going live. So.
Oh, an hour.
We've got an hour, so feel free to do what you like. The hour. Thank you for all being very nice audience members, though. Yes.
Oh.
Guys, one more thing. Guys, presidential candidates, can I have you back at 6:30? And we'll have a chat, we'll have a quick run through. Everyone else though, back at 7 please. Thank you. Feel free to do whatever you want to come back in half.
Pretty good, There'll be an instruction before. We're going to go through the format. You'll have 6 seconds instruction. Thank you. Hi, James. We've got one. It's like in... Yeah, it's like the elections update. Yeah, it's really good. Well, this is dull. You should say that in your No, I came back to you, and then you were like, no, I'm not going to put my hand up there. So I was like, all right, well, I won't. Oh, damn it.